Hello out there in Cyberland. My name is Todd Coolman, and I'm a player. And I'm joined today by Linda Moody, who is the widow of the great James Moody, the wonderful tenor, saxophonist, flutist, and everything elseist. And Ina Ditka, who served as his manager for many, many years. And we just thought we'd get together. We've all got our little cup of coffee here and talk about our experience with Moody. And I thought I'd just start out by because I'm kind of thinking back since I knew him for probably 30 years or so, and so I have a little ground to cover. But I'm pretty sure that I met Moody before Linda did. Well, not officially. I know that Linda. I seem to think that Linda and Moody met by chance many years ago, and then re-met later somehow. And I believe that when I first joined Moody's band, he was under different management, but soon afterward, I think Ina came on board, and that's when things kind of settled down, shall we say. So I've always been curious, though, Linda, because I don't really know the facts. Could you tell me a little bit about how you met him? I know that there was an initial meeting and then a later meeting, if I remember correctly.
That is correct. And it was a fairy tale because we met at the famous Catalina Jazz Club when they were in their original place on Cahuenga in 1988. And I went there only because I have a friend here in San Diego who didn't drive at night. She had cataracts and she begged me. She was a longtime friend of Moody's for 30 years. And she begged me. He's a legend. He'll never come to San Diego. You've got to take me up there. And so I finally said, okay. It was a Tuesday night. And it was his opening night. We went, and his friends were there. Sarah Vaughan was there, Jerome Richardson, lots of people who were there just to support him and be there for his opening night, and his daughter, Michelle. And so when my friend introduced me, he kissed me on both cheeks. And I thought, oh, who do you think you are kissing me on both cheeks? And I didn't realize he kissed the whole world on both cheeks. And so then I think that was in springtime of 88. And then in the end of November, Thanksgiving time, the last week in November, he did come to San Diego at a club that we had here called Hilario's, and it was in La Jolla. Sorry, that's my phone. And so my friend and I went, and she said, oh, Moody, you remember Linda? And he said, I do. Of course I remember. And I thought, oh, that's a crock. He's met 5,000 people in the last year. Why would he remember me? And so he asked me to lunch, and I didn't say no. I didn't say, I'm busy. I just found myself saying, I would love to have lunch with you. And we were married 3 months later.
My goodness.
So it was, we didn't really know each other, but we knew each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I need to butt in soon.
Yes, please.
Because obviously I booked Moody at Catalina's and at Hilario's.
Yes.
And I remember when he came to Hilario's, I suddenly didn't hear from Moody. We used to talk every day. And suddenly nothing. No phone call, nothing. I couldn't reach him. And I called Nathan Davis, who introduced me to Moody originally. And I said, Nathan, I'm really worried. I'm really worried because Moody, Moody had he had the blues sometimes. And I said, if I don't hear from him in the next day or two, Nathan, you go out to California and look for him. And sure enough, the next thing I knew was that I heard that, honey, I fell in love.
Yeah.
And I felt like, wow. And
Yeah.
sure enough, 3 months later, I had to travel all the way to California. I flew to Los Angeles, met up with my friend Joanna Fitzpatrick and another friend who drove us down to San Diego for the wedding, who then ran out of petrol. Luckily, you have enough army stations around. Where I hitchhiked to an army station to get a couple of people, some soldiers to come and get us petrol for the car. So we at the wedding we were late.
I remember.
Yeah.
I have you on video running into the church.
Yes, that was definitely what played.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I do remember.
But Coolman, I thought you were already working with Moody then. It seems to me because you subbed for Rufus, right?
Yeah, basically, Rufus Reed had been working with Moody for a period of time. Back in those days, this is well before any kind of like security at the airports and things. You could travel on anybody's ticket. They didn't care who you were as long as you had a ticket.
That's right.
So, and the gig that he did in Catalina, I'm pretty sure he must have used local musicians because
he did. Yeah.
So that initial meeting, and don't take it the wrong way, but I never heard anything about it because, he met you and you were, there with, he didn't really mention it, but I just maybe it'd be a good time to tell you about how I met him was, it turns out Rufus couldn't make a certain engagement. And so I guess Moody asked him for some referrals, and he threw my name in the hat. I think he mentioned a few names. So, and Rufus didn't tell me initially. So the phone rang, and he said, "This is James Moody, and I'm looking for a bass player for some work that I have coming up." He says, "Are you doing anything right now?" And I thought, what does he mean? I said, "Well, no, I'm at home. I'm not doing anything in particular." He said, "I'll be there in 10 minutes," and hung up the phone. Now, I had no idea. I was living in Bloomfield, New Jersey at the time, and he was living in the next town over. I don't even remember the name of it. I don't remember the name of it, but Bellevue or something. And 10 minutes later, there's a knock on the door. I open the door, and there's Moody. He's wearing a track outfit and a longshoreman's hat, and he has about 7 horns under his arms. And I said, "Well, come on in." So he comes upstairs, takes his horn out. I get my bass. He says, "Let's play a blues." Okay, played a little bit. He says, "Do you know the melody to Freedom Jazz Dance?" And as it happened, I did. It was lucky. I said, "Well, I think so." We played that. We played a little bit. Then he said, "Okay, good." He said, "Here's a ticket." He said, "Be at the airport on Saturday. We're playing Saturday night in Indianapolis." And that was it. He left. And I thought, this didn't just happen. This is not how it works, And I looked at my ticket, and indeed it said Rufus Reed. So I showed up at the airport, and there's Moody, and I believe it was Harold Mayburn and Billy Hart. And we fly to Indianapolis. We go to this place, and we played for what was called the Indianapolis Jazz Society. Played a concert. No rehearsal. No discussion of repertoire. Just get up, call a tune, play it. And that's how I met him.
And that was your test.
And well, after the job, he said, we're gonna be performing at Sweet Basil in New York City next month or sometime. Are you available for that? I didn't have to look at my account. I thought whatever I got, I'm gonna get out of it. Whatever it is, I've got to do this. But the thing I want to emphasize is from the very beginning, I was struck by his humility.
Mm.
I thought this guy is a living legend, and he comes over to my house, drops what he's doing, and wants to play a couple, and then just decides it's okay, and you know, and that's why I still was scratching my head several months afterward, thinking, is this guy for real? Like this must be an act because he's James Moody, and I thought I don't know, it just puzzled me. But so that's a good few years before you were married.
Yeah.
And but when he met you the second time,
Yeah.
he called me
did
one
come
day.
to Ilario's, and we met the second time. I was there, I took my friend every night because she didn't drive. And he was just so kind and sweet and such a gentleman and so wonderful. And, and I had one son who was at Mammoth skiing for a month. And so when he came home, I took the boys to lunch and I said, I'm getting married. And my one son who had been gone for a month said, you can't get married. You haven't even been dating anyone. What's going on?
Uh-huh.
And so that's kind of how it went. And it was sort of indicative of our life together because when we were first married, he just said to me, honey, I can promise you one thing. You will never be bored. Well, that was an understatement. That was an understatement.
Of course.
And didn't really know what he meant by that, but luckily I could keep up.
Well,
remember, Linda, remember the wedding present I gave you? Because
yes, yeah, it's worth about 30 cents now.
I know. But because Moody was constantly on the phone to Linda.
Yes.
Constantly.
Yes.
From all over the world. So I
Mhm.
gave some shares in AT&T.
Yes. I
said,
still have the certificate.
You might as well own some of the company, but you're
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
after you guys met at Ilario's, he called me one day, and he said he called me Cool Man all the time, play on my name, and he said, Cool Man. He said, I met the one,
Mhm.
and I had known other women that he had tried to get to know, and frankly, each one kind of was a disaster. And I came to understand after I got to know him a little bit that all those years, all he would, at least in my opinion, all he was looking for was what I would call unconditional love.
Yeah.
That's all. That was really the only requirement.
That's it.
And unfortunately or fortunately, the other people couldn't provide that for whatever reason. And when he said, I found the one, I immediately thought, I said, well, then this person, I had no idea who Linda Moody was. Or Linda, what was your maiden name?
McGowan.
McGowan, right? So
Yeah.
I had no idea. But I thought, well, she must be a very giving person, especially given the fact he told me that you were going to get married soon. But Moody was not impulsive in the sense he felt something. He had such instinctive wisdom about people and about human nature and that sort of thing. He was not at all judgmental, in my opinion, but he could
Yeah.
size someone up in a
But
heartbeat.
Todd,
Yes.
just the same way that he hired you, he kind of hired me. We only
You know
met once
something?
for once.
You know, I
And
guess
the
he just
same way
felt
he met Linda,
he
that I
must have.
also, like you, I met a friend he was going out with before. Everybody wanted to change Moody. Linda's the only one who just did not want to change him.
That's exactly
anything,
right. I
Mm.
forgot about that, but yes, they said, Moody, you need to do this, you need to do that, and
Remember with the ear, when, because he had a hearing problem with the ear aids, the hearing aids, and I remember when we had him at Sweet Basil, and he was wearing the hearing aids for the first time. It was hell for him because you had all this stuff like the coffee cups and the ice cubes and the things and the chatter and that, and he took them out and threw them off and was in heaven again.
yeah.
Because he could just play music.
Well, you know what was interesting was the reason that he did all, the reason that he tried the hearing aids, the reason that he tried the wardrobes, the reason that he tried the hairstyle,
Yes,
whatever it was
yes,
that people said he needed, he tried them to try to love them. Like,
yeah,
okay,
accommodate,
if
accommodate.
that's how you feel, okay, I'll do that. But then it wasn't him.
No, and Linda is the only person who let him be him.
Yeah. And that's basically what he wanted. And I even noticed that in the records that we made. When we made those records for was it IPO? Was that the label?
Well, there was several, but there was
You know what?
first Norwood's
That
with me. It was Norwood's, Warner's, IPO.
but you know that those last records, in my experience of 25 years of being with him, it was the only time
You were
that
more.
nobody
You
told
were
him
30 years. You were
what
30
to
years
play.
with him. You were 30 years with him.
Okay. Oh wow. Well, but it was the I remember the guy that was he just said, just do what you do.
Yeah.
That was I
Yeah.
remember that like it was yesterday. And as a result, the records were magnificent.
Yeah.
Mm.
I do
Because he just
so
remember. I
too.
do remember Moody. Once we were in Paris together, and we were sitting in his hotel room, and he was, and Moody, being the politest, nicest, kindest person on planet Earth, I have never heard so many expletives in my life. In this one conversation, when he was talking about record executives, they want
Yeah.
me to play with this, and they want me to do this, and they want me to do that, and this, and that. And I mean, I was on the floor laughing because it was very funny
yeah.
talking,
Well,
hearing Moody like that.
the,
But he
the,
was definitely, let him do. I mean, like he's James Moody.
well the most
Well,
the thing that I observed over 30 years then or more, I never once heard him speak ill of anyone.
Nope,
Never.
never,
yeah.
never.
And at the same time, I always felt that the way he I learned from him by example. I'll just put it like that. Just observing the way he carried himself and the way he went through life
Yep.
was enough for me to just observe his manner of being. Was a lesson that I could never repay just by being an example.
But he
Yeah.
also had strong opinions, but he kept them, as you say, he kept them to himself, or maybe shared them, obviously shared them with you, Linda, and me,
Oh yeah.
but he would
Oh yes.
never,
Every day.
ever, not ever, ever shared in public,
No.
ever.
No,
So
no.
people, actually, I always thought that people thought that he was like almost like too nice. And I mean, we all know that he was not too nice. I mean, like, there was nobody smarter than him. I always remember, like, for example, going with James Moody to a restaurant. and waiters give him a menu. I mean, it's a basic. He looks at the menu and he knows what ingredients they have, and then he would put together the meal he wants to have, because he knows that they have all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a completely unique. We were often enough at restaurants together, and he would look at the menu, check out what it is,
And then he would say, he would look at me and he'd say, honey, tell him what I want. I'd say, okay. So I would order for him.
I remember that he didn't share. I remember on your
Oh, yeah.
after my big birthday, when we were all in Brighton in England, we went to Eastbourne to the fancy, and you ordered the soup. And no, he ordered the soup, and he said, like, may I taste it? No, but you can order your own.
Yeah. He was like that with chocolate cake too. Yeah. Huge piece of chocolate cake that was like this gigantic wedge of, like a 10-layer cake. And so I'd say, can I just try a little corner? No, but I'll order you your own. And so this huge wedge of cake would come for me. And of course, we took it all home. But he was just, he and Dizzy had so many stories about food. And a lot of it centered around how they beautifully carved a watermelon in like 3 seconds. And, it was just great, great stuff.
Well, with Dizzy, twice. So there are one festival in Germany, one festival in I think it was either on Antibes or Nice. So in Germany it was, and my family came, because my family they all met Moody and Dizzy, and they were so grateful for that. We were sitting somewhere, and Dizzy and Moody had dinner, and then the cake came by, and Dizzy pointed at one, and Moody pointed at one, and the waiter started carving. And he said, no, let's look at the cake. And the same thing in south of France, when the cheese cart came by, and again pointed at, no, just give us the cheese, give us the cheese. And it was like quite surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. No, lots of food stories about Moody and
Lots
Dizzy.
of food stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I want to bring up one thing before our time is up, that he found it impossible to keep a secret from me. And it didn't matter what it was about. And so we had been married about 3 months, and he came home from New York and he said, honey, I didn't want to tell you it's a secret, but I'm having a saxophone made for you. And I said, you're what? I don't play the saxophone. And so he said, no, it's a gold saxophone for you to wear around your neck. And I'm having it made, and it was supposed to be done by now. And so I have it on today. Here it is. Am I holding it right? Anyway,
Solid gold.
Solid gold. He went to New York and went to the jeweler, our favorite jeweler that made it. And the man had rented a saxophone and had it at his side, and to get it all right. And Moody dropped in there, and the neck was not long enough, and he had some of the keys wrong. He was mixing up an alto and tenor. So anyway, so I finally got it about 5 months later, and it's just a treasure that I have, that he loved for me to wear it every day, and I did wear it every day, still wear it a lot. But it was just such a special gift.
I still have the Moody saxophones on our Christmas tree. They're not solid gold.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Remember you gave me a couple when
yes. And people have actually taken them off my tree. Phoebe Jacobs said, oh, you won't miss that. And she grabbed one. I did.
I asked you.
Yeah, I used to have 250 little gold saxophones on my tree.
Todd,
So
do you remember, do you know Moody's middle name?
Never knew it.
Okay,
uh,
now here's
I
the
didn't even know he
story.
had one.
Okay, here's the story. And I did check with Linda. I did check with Linda. Moody, it was very, very funny because Moody has a middle name. And I knew Moody now for 5 years. And I was on tour with the Dizzy Gillespie United Nations Orchestra, including Moody. And because of Dizzy's diabetes, I had to get Dizzy off the sound check early to get him some food and stuff. So we were in Edinburgh at the Usher Hall, but we were in Edinburgh in the restaurant. Dizzy and I were sitting there, and now the band comes in. Moody's first, and Dizzy shouts over, "Garfield, do you want to join us?" And I looked at Dizzy, and Moody didn't even look. He went straight onto the furthest away table, and I looked at Dizzy and said, "Why do you call him Garfield?" And Dizzy looked. You didn't know. That's his middle name.
Wow, I never knew
I,
that.
I went to Moody, and Moody, I hate that middle name. I hate it. So ever since, after that, I always thought, like when Moody would go to the North Sea Jazz Festival, with everybody crowding at the Bel Air Hotel and stuff, I would always get him a Garfield socks because Moody always had this extravagant socks. I always would give him Garfield socks and give them to him like a check-in. I wouldn't say anything. I said, "Woody, I have a little present for you." And he would glare at me. And all the other musicians who were checking in would ask, why do you give him Garfield socks? And I said, "Well, Moody loves funny socks.
yeah.
And I love Moody." But that's what
Mhm.
it's Garfield.
You know, he also. I mean, I can speak to some musical things too. Um,
Please.
he obviously to play at the level that he played at for so many years. You have to have the highest standards. To be able to perform at that level. And I'll never forget. Boy, what a lesson. I don't remember. We were playing a concert. I'm not sure I recall where, but we finished and we went backstage and he tugged on my sleeve and he said, "Man," he said, I'm sorry." He says, I just couldn't, I just couldn't get to it tonight. I just didn't feel like I could really play the way I wanted to." He said, "I felt like I only had 60%." He said, "But I gave the people 100% of that." And that just blew me
Yeah,
away.
yeah,
I
Mm,
I just thought, well, we're human beings. Not every night's going to be a 10, right? It just doesn't work that
yeah,
way. But this idea of giving the people everything I have. And
yeah.
and the first thing that entered my mind, of course, I was selfish. I thought, am I giving the people everything I have?
mhm.
Like that really, and I never forgot that. It seemed like every time when we played after that, I kept thinking, I need to give 100%,
That
you
was
know.
my husband up to
May,
the
may,
end.
may I tell you a story? When Moody was in London, he was playing Ronnie Scott's, which was sold out. But the Victoria and Albert Museum, which we all know, kind of, they tried to put on a lunchtime series of jazz. And because Moody was at Ronnie's, they booked Moody with a local band, a local rhythm section. And it just didn't work because Victoria and Albert Museum and jazz concert at lunchtime just didn't work. So there were very, very few people there. Moody played his heart out. He played, I mean, unbelievable. I mean, I was there, me and the very few people in the audience, because it just didn't work at the Victoria and Albert Museum. And afterwards, when Moody and I we left in the taxi back to the hotel, because we then had to go back to Ronnie Scott's, he said, I just felt so I felt so good about the people trying something I'm so sorry that it didn't work. I just wanted to give them my best. I mean, it was the most unbelievable performance. And I know sadly, other artists, musicians, who, when there is no audience there, who get irritated or upset or like, I don't want to do this or,
It's
no,
ego. It's called ego.
no, it's called ego. And Moody just felt for the people who tried to do something, and he gave them more, I mean, everything. It was, I wish I could have recorded it. It was so good.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm.
My husband did not have an ego at all. I
No.
mean, people just don't
No.
believe that, but he really didn't. And I just want to say that we're at the half-hour mark right now.
Yes,
But Gail said that we could have a little bit more time if we had a couple of really special Moody stories. So I'd love to hear you guys.
I just, following what Ina pointed out, um, in terms of his performances, he never differentiated with respect to what the venue was, what town we were in,
yep,
what we might have been getting paid or not, was never a
nope.
factor. And I also, I'd like to say this, just I don't know why, maybe it's not important, but I don't recall ever asking Moody or feeling the need to ask what did a job pay.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
and he would always pay what
In
he
30
paid.
years, he and
Yeah,
I never discussed money.
yeah,
I do recall regards that, just to show you where he's at. I mean, uh, we did a tour of one-nighters in Europe at some point, and somehow the way the business was working was all the promoters were supposed to send the money forward, and then our last gig was in Stockholm. So at the end of that gig, that promoter would have gathered all of the money from the tour and then paid Moody his share, apparently. And so it's a Saturday night, and the guy goes to pay him or something in Swedish crowns. And Moody said, no, the contract's in dollars. Well, we don't have any dollars. So Moody called the three of us sidemen into the dressing room and said, look, there's a problem with the business here. He briefly explained what it was. He said, I'm going to have to stay till tomorrow or Monday to get this straightened out, but you guys have to get on the plane. He opened up his alto saxophone case. He had a wad of bills about as big as a soccer ball. And he paid the three of us from that. And he said, I always have this just in case.
yeah.
And as it turned out, we got on the plane the next morning, and he stayed in Stockholm.
That was before me.
Yeah, it was. And
Yeah,
they took him to the train station, which was the only place that was open, and exchanged the money there somehow. But he still had to stay an extra day. I mean, that was just
yeah,
like when I was at the receiving end of that, I thought, first of all, I thought, Moody, you don't have to do this for us. Like, I trust you.
yeah.
But
But he
that was
would.
just,
He always had like a little with the rubber band.
yeah.
Money.
Another time, and I'm just trying to illustrate like the person,
Yeah.
because
Those things were important to him.
yeah, a
Yeah.
big time. He always told me, he says, cool man, he's business is business,
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
Yes.
and another time, of course, Moody was beyond punctual. And you guys will know what I mean by that. But we were on a tour in Europe again, and we were traveling by train. So I think we were in Amsterdam, and we had to go somewhere. So the train was due to come in at, say, 8 in the morning. So Moody wanted us to be on the platform at 5 a.m. And, and, and and I'm okay with all that. But I said, Moody, it's a little, I said, in Europe, when they say the train will be there at 8, it's actually there at 8. Like it works. And I said, maybe if we got there at like 7, no, we got to, so we get there. It's the middle of winter. It was so cold and dark and foggy and awful. And we get to the train station, no one's there. It's 5 in the morning. So we're sitting on the platform and he pulls out his wallet and hands me an American Express card. And he said, why don't you take the guys downstairs and get something to eat and get something to drink, some hot food. I'll stay here with the bags and the instruments. And I said, well, why don't you come with us and we'll just you guys take care of that. And I'll wait here with the, I'll just wait here. And he sat there. We went down and had breakfast and hot chocolate and all this.
Yeah.
He's up there on the platform by himself. It must have been 10 degrees outside. And
Todd, like the amount of times that Linda Moody called me from San Diego airport, because I was in Europe, like 8 hours ahead, when she was in front of the airport before it even opened. And she was so furious. And she couldn't think of anybody else to call than me, because I was 8 hours ahead. The other time was Newark Airport, when Moody was still living in Newark. Newark Airport called me once and said, Miss Dittke, we're really sorry, but we know Mr. Moody because he flies out of here a lot. But this time he really took it over the top. He came 2 days early.
Well, I got to say this. In his defense, we never missed a plane or a train or a boat.
Because if you even missed something, you had enough time to, if somebody lost a passport or forgot a passport, you had enough time to go back home and all the way back to the airport, and you still had 2 hours to wait.
Yes.
Yes, I've done that.
And you know what? I hate to admit it, but I've absorbed some of that. I mean, by doing that so many years,
too.
Now I'm like that.
I still do it.
Early.
But I'm like that. My husband is not, but he's getting better. But I mean, the stress of running to a gate, no.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
Moody, when we traveled together, the few times we did, I always say, Moody, you go ahead and I'll meet you at the gate.
Well, what I love about what I'm hearing is that the public, the jazz fans, they know Moody to be one of the pillars of modern jazz music, one of the expert exponents of that. But they only see that. They see this talented, amazing musician performing night after night. But to know the person, like that would be enough.
Yeah.
But beyond that, this person who, in my estimation, that one thing that we differed in, Moody and I, like on paper, okay, on paper, I'm supposedly well educated. Okay, I've got all these degrees. Moody didn't get that kind of education, but you know something? He was what I called worldly.
Did you know, you're absolutely 100% right, but did you know how Moody learned how to play the flute?
How to what?
The flute.
No.
Moody was the greatest flute player, jazz flute player of all time.
Yeah.
Again, in Paris, when we had this crucial moment talking about record companies and everything, he also told me, he said, he told me how somebody gave him a flute. And he played it upside down. You didn't know that, Todd. I'm amazed. He played it upside down, and he got great sounds out of it until somebody saw him doing that and said, let's do it this way. And he became I mean, he was then, even with upside down, totally wrong, I mean, like down, because he loved the flute, and he became one of the greatest flute players of all times, learning it upside down.
Well, he of course he was an incessant practicer.
Yes.
And one day I asked him, I said, Moody, at this stage, as highly evolved as you are, what on earth do you practice now? What's left to practice? And he picked up his tenor and he played a C major scale, one octave up and down.
Yes.
And then he took the saxophone down and said, and variations therein.
Yes. I had
Yeah.
once two young people, young people interviewing him, and they were lovely, but really not ready to interview somebody like James Moody, because they said, like, I always remember that they said, well, you always play the same things, and don't you get bored with it? And Moody looked at them, and then he picked up a saxophone and played Happy Birthday in 10 different styles.
Wow.
And he said,
Wow.
and he said, you figure that one out.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway.
anyway.
I had the joy and the privilege of listening to him practice 3 hours a day. And many days he would say, honey, come and sit and listen to this and tell me what you think. And I would just marvel at some of the things. I'd say, how did you ever think to go there or to put that together with that? And he said, that's why I practice 3 hours a day, so that I can do those things. But the interesting thing that I've discovered about myself, because I was so used to hearing, because I came to every single show he ever did, and all the sets every night, and I listened to him practice 3 hours a day at home. But just in the last, I would say 2 years, I've been listening to a lot of his music in a new light, with new ears, with new, I'm just marveling at how brilliant he was. That it's amazing what you hear when you,
and it's so modern.
It
was so modern. He was so modern in 1950.
Oh yeah,
1970.
Yeah.
He was so modern. And remember,
Yes.
you may not remember, and I'm not going to mention any names now, but we were in Europe, and that was in the late 80s, and somebody asked to get Moody to do like a couple numbers on a recording, and Moody really didn't want to do it. And I remember I had the flu, and I was in bed, and I had to deal with this, and it was all messed up. And Moody did the right thing. So he did it. He did the recording, the 2 tracks. And it was like, I mean, David Murray, Ornette Coleman together, all the way. I mean, he went like completely out there. Just to kind of show, like, I didn't really want to be here, but it was still brilliant.
Yes.
Everybody thought like Moody was like from that era. No, he wasn't. He was from any era.
Yeah.
Well, I see a little timer up on my screen that says that we're about a minute to go. So I just like to thank,
so much fun.
Yeah, everybody.
Gail Boyd, thank you. And happy
Gail,
birthday tomorrow.
Yeah, for giving us the opportunity, because I could talk about my husband forever.
You could have sit here for a long time.
Yes.
Anyway,
we might even do that. It's so much fun.
It is fun.
As an observer, I've loved it.
And I love both of you so much.
When I think of him, at this point, I just feel gratitude.
Yes.
And I just feel grateful to have been involved with him in my life somehow. That's all.
Yeah. So. God and the universe had a plan.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Yes. Meet you, both of you.
Yes.
That's true.
Mwah.
Well, we'll see you.
I love you all.
Love
Thank you,
too.
Gail.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Gail, very much.